In this video, we will introduce about the movie Green Book. First, I will explain this movie. Green Book is a historical movie released in 2018. The movie has specific model characters. They are Don Shirley, a Jamaican-American pianist, and Frank Tony Lip Barrelong, a driver and bodyguard. The movie was inspired their 1962 concert tour. The movie got Best Picture, Best Supporting Actor, and Best Original Screenplay at the 91st Academy Award. Why did this movie become so famous? Because this movie focused on African American as a cultural minority. And it was very interesting for people all over the world. And we will focus on intercultural communication. By using intercultural communication theory, we will be able to analyze the film more deeply and make some discovery. Second, we will summarize the film.
Hello, my name is Injulia, and today I'll be talking about the summary for our film review for Green Book, along with the conclusion. So, the movie starts off with Tony Vallelonga working as a bouncer in one of the biggest nightclubs, Copacabana, in 1960s New York. Due to a threat from the head of a famous gang, the club was forced to close under the excuse of renovations. Thus, Tony had to look for other jobs. The following day, Tony's friend had found him a job as a personal chauffeur for a famous pianist known as Doc. Tony did not think much of it and accepted the offer, going directly to Doc's address to get the job. To his surprise, Doc, or his full name, Doc Don Shirley, was a black man that lived in a mansion. At that moment, Tony still believed that black people were inferior and poor, which is why he was shocked to find out that his employer is not white. During the job interview, Doc explained that he was going on an 8-week tour of America and needed someone who could act as a driver, bodyguard, and manager. Initially, Tony refused as he believed that it was beneath him to work for a black man. However, he was won over when Doc raised the amount of his salary. Upon being hired, Tony was given the Green Book, which is a book containing a list of restaurants and lodgings that allowed black people to enter. Back in 1960s America, racism was rampant and there were no laws ensuring equality for all, which is why business establishments could be blatantly racist and promote segregation. Tony's job as a driver began with several clashes between him and Doc, since he was prejudiced and held to his beliefs. However, they start becoming closer as the tour progresses, Tony seeing life from a black person's point of view and realizes how unfairly they were being treated. He was also impressed watching Doc perform, and gets shocked when he finds out that Doc was still treated badly even though he had performed for them. Throughout the tour, Tony would write letters to his wife, and Doc would help him improve his writing, which resulted in his wife being deeply moved by the romantic and well-written letters. Their bond grew deeper, and Tony proved to be loyal when he declined another job that his friends found because they thought he was desperate enough for money to work for a black man. Tony assured Doc that he would stay with him until the tour ended. On their journey to the next city, they were stopped by police and later arrested because Tony had punched the officer that insulted him. Doc had no choice but to contact the Attorney General so that they could both be released, and later, Doc told Tony that he was embarrassed for what he had to do. Tony had retorted that Doc was a rich person with a luxurious house and a perfect life. Doc was deeply offended, causing him to exit the car. Tony chased after him, confused on why Doc was angered by a statement which he believed to be true. Doc finally told Tony that his luxurious house meant nothing for him, as he felt alone and unable to fit in anywhere because he was being discriminated by white people. And at the same time, his wealth caused his own people to think that he was too aristocratic for them. He lived alone in a big house with no friends nor family. Hearing that, Tony was visibly shocked to the point of speechlessness. At that moment, Tony finally understood that no matter how much wealth or status that a black person accumulates, they still live a challenging life, all because of the color of their skin. At the final city of their tour, Doc was not allowed to join Tony and the other musicians in the dining room. Tony tried to help him, negotiating with the manager to let Doc dine with them. The manager said that the best he could do was to prepare a table in the back gardens, which Doc refused, and in the end the concert was cancelled. After that, Doc brought Tony to a predominantly black blues club. In exchange for their meal, Doc played the piano, and the patrons were so impressed that band members invited Doc to duet with them, giving him the opportunity to finally play the music that he wanted, instead of the one he was contracted to do. That night, Doc insisted that Tony made it back home in time for Christmas and even drove so that Tony could lay down in the back seat and rest. When they arrived, Tony had invited Doc to have dinner with his family. However, Doc refused, believing that his presence as the black man would make Tony's family uncomfortable. In the end, after being alone in his mansion, Doc remembered Tony's words about being free to do what he wants and finally decided to attend the dinner with Tony and his family. When he arrived, Tony gave him a hug and introduced him to the family, which welcomed him warmly, especially Tony's wife when she learned that Doc had helped Tony in writing the letters for her. The movie ended with pictures of the real-life Doc and Tony, stating that the two had remained friends until death.
Hi everyone, I'm Song Tangche, and let's watch a video first.
I live on the streets. You sit on a throne. So yeah, my world is way more blacker than yours.
And rich white people pay me to play piano for them because it makes them feel cultured. But as soon as I step off that stage, I go right back to being just another nigga to them. Because that is their true culture.
So just like this picture, Zhang was sitting on a high throne in white. He's a colored people who lives in a white world alone. And Tony was sit down there in black. He is a white people who lives in a black world. So this film mainly shows us the cultural conflicts of racial discrimination and the intercultural communication between two different worlds and two different cultures. Both of them have changed in their story, but Tony is obviously changed more easily than Dang, because he is a white man who lives in a black world, so he knows how people in the black culture live and how to deal with them. So as long as he is willing to communicate with the people of color, he can live in a happy way with them. But Dang, just like what he said, he is a colored man, so he won't get enough respect from people in the white culture. And because he lives in the white world, so he cannot fix the black world, and people in the culture is hard for them to accept him, so he is alone. And just like Tony said, the world is full of lonely people who are afraid to make the first move. And so the first move for John is the Kentucky Fried Chicken. At first, he thought this is a food for black. This is an inherent impression. But after Tony asked, he tried the fried chicken. He makes the first move to accept the black culture, to accept his own people. And then he threw the bones away, just like he threw the salt he used to have. And at last, Don walked into a colored people restaurant. He walked into the black culture. Although everyone locked him in a weird sight, but he played the piano for his people. He played the piano with his people. Now he accepts the black culture. He accepts his people. He accepts himself.
And now I will tell you about my film review, The Green Book. This movie's topic is Donald, a top black pianist, needed to find a reliable driver to take charge of the reception of his son's tour. And Tony, a white man, succeeded in getting the job. The time of the film is in the 1916s, when there was a very serious racial segregation and discrimination in the southern United States. So many stories will certainly occur during the southern tour. And this is Mahershala Ali, the actor of Don Shirley. And in my opinion, the name of the Green Book comes from here, the Black Moralist Green Book. And I will tell you about the three conflicts. This is the first one. It was Donald who wanted to take Tony to the concert. He was afraid that he was not polite enough, so he wanted to give him some advice. Obviously, Tony flatly refused Donald's request when neither side knew about it. But when he listened to the introduction of the host at the window, he found that Donald was such a famous person. He not only had the statue of Doctor of Psychology, Musicology, and Etiquette, but also performed 12s in the White House. And this is the second one. It was at the door of a shop. Tony saw a piece of jade fell on the ground at the door of the shop, so he secretly put it into his pocket. But Donald knew about it and strongly asked him to return the jade. If he didn't return it, he had to pay the shop. Tony thought that what fell on the ground was ownerless, but finally he still returned the jade. The conflict here was the conflict between the two people's values. And this is the third conflict. Tony and Donald were both put into prison because of the police attack. In the cell, Donald said to Tony, violence can never win, and only by sticking to dignity can we win, because self-esteem always makes sense. After they were released, they quarreled in the car. Donald angrily growled at Tony in the rain. I am not accepted by white people, nor by my own people. I am not even man enough, so who I am? This paragraph is very shocking. And the ending. After the conflict, the end of the film was much warmer. Tony finally went home smoothly with the help of Donald and spent Christmas with his relatives. But Tony was not so happy after he came home. He always looked thoughtful until Donald appeared at his door with champagne. He was happy and introduced Donald to his surprised family. We are always trapped in the double mirror image of the discriminated and discriminated. The mission of ethnic integration still has a long way to go. Okay, thank you.
Conclusion. The film Green Book portrayed the challenges that Black people face, both from their point of view and from a white person's point of view. It also goes to show that racism can be unlearned, especially if people take the time to see that their prejudice and misconceptions do not hold true to every single person, which is why one must never treat another person solely based on stereotypes of their race. Even till this day, racism still occurs all around the world, with people with darker skin tones being victimized the most often. This is why it is important to spread awareness about what racism is, the harmful effects of racism, and why we must not let it continue. Thank you.